Why does your child act like you do not matter? When my younger brother was around 16 or 17 years old, there was a period when our entire family almost stopped talking to each other altogether. When our parents called out to him, he would not respond. When they asked him something, he would snap back or disappear into his room for the whole day. At first, my dad still pushed himself to check in with him, but after so many times of getting nothing back, he eventually stopped trying. I remember one evening, I found my mom sitting alone at the kitchen table after she had cleared away the dishes. She was not doing anything. She just sat there, staring out the window. I did not dare ask her what she was thinking, but I knew. She was asking herself, "What did I do wrong?" I stood there feeling for my parents, yet unable to understand why my brother had become that way. That question stayed with me for a long time, until I started looking deeper into psychology, and I realized this was not something unique to our family. There are so many families out there going through exactly the same thing. If your family is in that situation right now, stay with me until the end of this video. Together, we are going to figure out why children treat their parents like strangers and what you can do to change things. Let us find the answers together. Why does your child act like you do not matter? Going back to my younger brother, back then he would often not respond when our parents called, and sometimes he would get irritated and walk off to his room. I stood there watching and could not understand how someone who had always been easygoing could change so drastically. Later, when I started researching, I came to understand this is what psychologists call passive aggression. When a child realizes they are being controlled or that they have no voice, they choose to shut down rather than confront directly. By acting as though you do not exist, they send a message that says, "You cannot control me right now." This is how they assert their autonomy and make you feel the very same helplessness they themselves have been carrying. Beyond that, this kind of detachment often traces back to the times a child reached out to you and did not feel heard. For example, your child comes home excited to tell you about their day, but you are busy and just give a distracted nod to get them to move on. Or when they share something they are afraid of, you respond with, "That is such a small thing to worry about." Once, a child can let that slide, but when it happens over and over, they slowly learn a lesson. Going to mom or dad only leads to disappointment, and to avoid being disappointed one more time, they build an emotional wall. No more sharing, no more asking, no more reaching out. At this point, their withdrawal is really just a fear of opening up to someone they are no longer sure will actually listen. Finally, the disrespectful behavior is only the surface. Underneath that coldness, there may be pain that has never been named, a longing to be noticed, or a quiet form of payback for old wounds. Some children deliberately act out just to see you react strongly, because that is the only way they still feel they have any impact on you. The truth is, children do not actually want to push you away. They are simply caught inside broken defense mechanisms, because they have not yet found a safer way to reconnect with the people they once loved most. So the next time your child ignores you, before you react, ask yourself, what is my child trying to tell me? And that is also the very first step toward changing things. So what can you do to change things? Step 1. Take an honest look at yourself. Psychology tells us that from a very early age, children's brains are already naturally wired to observe and mirror the way their parents handle emotions in daily life. They absorb all of it simply by watching you every single day. That is why parents are a child's very first mirror. For example, whenever you are upset with your spouse, if your go-to response is silence and shutting the other person out, and your child watches that happen enough times, they begin to learn that this is just how adults deal with conflict. And then one day, you realize your child is doing that exact same thing to you. But before you blame them, ask yourself honestly, Am I unintentionally teaching my child to ignore people through my own behavior? It does not stop there. Children are also acutely sensitive to the gap between what their parents say and what they actually do. For instance, you teach your child to respect others, but then talk badly about a family member right in front of them. You tell your child that honesty is important, but then ask them to cover for you, to tell a visitor that you are not home when you are. These moments may seem trivial, but in your child's eyes, that is when the image they have of you starts to crack. When your words and your actions no longer match, the lessons you try to teach also begin to lose their weight, and your child starts to treat you like you do not matter, because in their eyes, what you say no longer feels reliable. On top of that, parents need to honestly examine whether they are getting in the way of their child's need for autonomy. Many parents mistake a child's desire for independence as disrespect and respond by tightening their grip. But when a child is over-controlled, they use detachment as a shield to hold on to the only space they still feel belongs to them. The tighter the control, the further they pull away. So start by offering your child a genuine apology for the times you did not listen, the times you pushed too hard, or the times you unintentionally dismissed what they were feeling. A sincere apology will not undermine your authority as a parent. On the contrary, it will show your child that you are mature enough to recognize when you have gotten something wrong. And that is exactly what creates a safe enough environment for them to slowly lower their defenses and begin to trust you again. Step 2. Regulate your own emotions. After looking honestly at yourself, you need to learn how to manage your own emotions before you can try to reconnect with your child. Because no matter how well you understand where your child is coming from, if every time they ignore you, you respond by yelling or criticizing, everything you have worked toward will fall apart. In psychology, when people face a situation that makes them angry or hurt, the brain immediately activates a self-protective response. Scientists call this an amygdala hijack, meaning emotions have essentially taken over the controls. In that state, the rational part of the brain is nearly completely shut down, and you act purely on instinct. That is why so many parents, even knowing full well that yelling does not work, still end up yelling every time their child ignores them. Because in that moment, their brain is no longer operating from a rational place. Picture this. You call your child down for dinner 3 times with no response. Right away, frustration surges up, and you walk straight into their room and say loudly, "Can you not hear me? Why do I always have to call you so many times?" Your child does not answer, or worse, snaps back at you. And both of you fall into an argument that goes nowhere. The meal that evening is eaten in silence, everyone keeping to themselves. Nobody wins in that situation, and the distance between you only grows wider. So what can you do instead of reacting right away? The moment you feel that frustration beginning to rise, stop, take one slow deep breath, and count silently in your head from 1 to 3. That small pause is enough for the rational part of your brain to come back online and help you choose how to respond, rather than just reacting on instinct. You can also remind yourself, my child is reacting this way because they are hurting. This is not a personal attack on me. That one small mental reminder can help you hold on to your composure instead of letting the emotions escalate. When you stay calm in the face of your child's indifference, they will start to notice that their silence no longer controls how you feel, and gradually, they will lose the reason to use it as a weapon. Your calmness is not weakness. It is the kind of real authority your child actually needs to see in you. Step 3. Rebuild the connection. When it comes to reconnecting with a child, many parents assume they need a major heart-to-heart conversation, a family trip, or some kind of special occasion to mend things. But the reality is the complete opposite. Connection is built through small, everyday moments, not through big occasions. Imagine this. Instead of waking up every morning and immediately reminding your child to study or finish this task or that one, you simply ask, "Do you have any plans today?" Just one small question. But it tells your child that you care about their life as a whole, not just whether they are doing everything right. Or at dinner in the evening, instead of asking, "Have you finished your homework?" try asking, "Did anything good happen today?" Simple questions like that open up a space where your child feels seen as a person, not checked up on like a student. Beyond that, research in psychology also shows the physical touch plays a very important role in rebuilding connection. A hug in the morning, a gentle hand on the shoulder while your child is studying, or simply sitting next to them without saying anything, all of it stimulates the brain to release oxytocin, a hormone that creates feelings of safety and closeness. This is especially important for children who have been emotionally walled off for a long time. Sometimes one sincere hug can do more than a long conversation ever could. On top of that, set aside at least 10 to 15 minutes every day to do something your child enjoys, with no phone in hand and absolutely no agenda. Maybe it is watching a video together that they like, playing a game with them, or simply sitting and listening to them talk without jumping in with advice or opinions. That kind of full, undivided presence sends your child a very clear message. You matter to me, not because you get good grades or behave perfectly, but simply because you are you. Connection cannot be rebuilt in a single day. But if you stay consistent with these small things every day, your child will gradually begin to see that you are genuinely trying, and that consistency will do more to win them over than any words ever could. Step 4. Shift from punishment to encouragement. When many parents see their child behaving badly, their first instinct is punishment, taking away the phone, grounding them, or raising their voice. But research in psychology shows that punishment only works in the short term. Over time, it makes children afraid or resentful, but it does not help them understand why a behavior is wrong or how to actually change it. Think about this. Your child gets their phone taken away for not doing chores. They accept the punishment in silence, but inside they are frustrated and full of resentment. The next week, they still do not do their chores. They are just more careful not to get caught this time. Punishment solved nothing. It only taught them how to avoid getting punished, not how to do the right thing. Instead, psychologists recommend an approach built around encouragement, one that focuses on understanding the reasons behind a child's behavior, rather than just reacting to what is visible on the surface. When your child refuses to do their chores, instead of jumping straight to punishment, try asking, "Is there something going on with you lately? How are you feeling about all of this?" That question opens up an entirely different kind of conversation, one where your child feels cared for rather than put on trial. Beyond that, encouragement does not mean handing out praise non-stop or looking the other way at every wrong behavior. Encouragement means focusing on your child's strengths rather than zeroing in on their weaknesses. Instead of saying, "You are always so lazy," try, "I can see how responsible you are about the things you genuinely care about. I believe you can bring that same energy to helping out around the house." That way of speaking lets your child know you see them as a capable person, not a problem child who needs to be fixed. When your child feels trusted and valued, they no longer need to use indifference as a weapon, because now they have found another way to connect with you, one that feels safer and healthier. To wrap things up, rebuilding a relationship that has been damaged is a long road. There will be days when you give everything you have, and your child is still just as distant as before, and that is completely normal. Because what your children need is not a perfect parent. They need a parent who shows up, who is always ready to listen, and who has the courage to change when they realize something has not been right. When you shift the way you love, from controlling to trusting, from pushing to listening, your child will start to notice, and respect will come back, not because they are afraid of you, but because they genuinely look up to you. And if you have any questions about anything related to psychology, whether it is about family, about yourself, or about anything else in life, go ahead and leave a comment below so that we can work through it together in the videos to come. Goodbye, and see you again.